Welcome back, everyone. This is the second segment in our financial literacy podcast, and we're joined today, of course, by Mr. Clayton Janson, certified financial planner, uh, to help us understand and sort of build a foundation upon the financial world and the money world around us. And of course, I'm Carl Weiss at Fairway Independent Mortgage. My NMLS number is 263293, licensed in 21 states, and we are talking about this is part two on budgeting. And so where we left off was sort of this the concept in the broad strokes of how do we get the numbers, both on the expense side from as a quick recap of printing out 12 monthly bank statements, taking the total withdrawals from the account, adding them together using your calculator and dividing that total number by 12 to get a 12-month moving average, basically, of our expenses. And as we were discussing in the budgeting world, we also have the same thing we can do on the bank statements for all of the income, the net income that's going in. That's after, taxes, 401k deductions, and things like that from paychecks and whatnot, for our income point of view. And so as we were discussing some ideas and some ways to manage maybe the credit card debt if we wanted to, pay some debts down. And Mr. Janson's recommendation was to be he called it a double dipping, where you not only pay debts down, but simultaneously put some money into savings to grow some assets, which I 100% agree with, because it gives people that latitude to not be so financially poor while they're trying to pay down debt, that when life gets in the way and they actually have an expense, they can then have the cash to pay for something instead of having to resort back to a credit card, which you're working so hard to pay down. That's kind of where we left off. And I think, Clay, do you want to jump in with kind of some methodologies there?
Yeah, my pleasure. So I really think while you're doing this, as you just outlined, Carl, right, you're paying down those credit cards, and at the same time you're saving. My gosh, the system can feel like it's rigged against you because we're on our phones, right? We've got our cell phone out, we've got that bank app pulled up, and we can see that savings account. It's just right next to that checking account, and it's so easy to transfer that money, right? Because we want to do something fun this weekend, and that dopamine part of our brain's getting excited, right? We want to kind of unwind some of that hard work that we've been doing on the savings and debt payment side. And so I tell people just right up front, if you're going to go forward on this mission, highly, highly, highly recommend you pick a different bank to do this savings account with. And I tell them, I said, let me be clear. I didn't say a different account at the same bank, but a different bank, because there is something magical about just making it one step away from where your operational money is, which is typically for most people a direct deposit checking account, right? Your credit cards at the same bank, right? Those kind of relationships. And I love the way banks have done it, by the way. I mean, I'm a big believer in having that technology and having everything linked up, but it does work against us, right? As human beings. So if you can go
Right.
to a different bank, credit union, a bank that's, humbly, I'll tell you what I did. I started at a credit union that only had a bank branch that was like 15 miles away from my house, right? When I started doing that,
Yep.
because I knew myself is that this would be, it was too, if there was too many branches and too many ATMs and too many opportunities, it just needs to be out of sight, out of mind, right? One step, out of sight, out of mind.
I
Now,
can't underscore this enough.
oh,
And to all of our viewers, here's the thing. You're watching two of probably the most disciplined people you're going to ever meet in the financial world. And I will tell you personally, and for 40 years, or 35 years, I've recommended to people exactly what Clay is saying. And I take it one step more archaic. If you typically travel from your home in a certain direction for town,
yes,
wherever your world is, go the other direction
other
5
direction.
minutes,
Yeah,
find that bank, open an account there, and get no debit card and no online access. And people are going to roll their eyes. The world we live in is instant. It's cash. It's
yep,
Venmo. It's money moving at an instant. And I will tell you, that's most of your problem. Budgeting
yep.
is that it's too easy and
It's
like
stacked against you. Yep.
It is. And they know that. And that's why there's no or very little physical response to swiping a credit card versus peeling out $100 bills from your wallet. And so, what I've found and what's actually been super successful is you go 5 minutes the other direction that you normally travel. You open a bank account,
No
um,
debit card.
no debit card, no online access. Here's the thing, the money is there. If there's a true need, not a want, but a need, you have to drive to the bank, go inside, and get your money. And
Yep.
they're open 4, 5, sometimes 6 days a week. And you can do that, no problem. And just that little thing, that maybe 15-minute round trip to go pull out $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is from that account,
It was a deterrent. It will
that
deter
will
you. Yeah.
absolutely deter you from actually doing that because you will no longer be on a whim to push a button through Cash App, Venmo, Zelle, any of this stuff, transfer. And I'm gonna go another step deeper because people trick themselves oftentimes in this manner. What I see often is that in payroll deduction, um, we've got this slick system, right, where you can literally have your company direct deposit your paycheck into your
Anywhere.
bank.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, what they do is they go, great, well, here, I'm going to put a bunch of money towards my checking for my bills. And then I'm going to do a couple, 2, 3 savings accounts because I want to save for item A or trip B or whatever the expense is that you have these great ideas. These ideas are fantastic. Your thought process is right on. And people will do this for years. And then I see the bank statements, and here's what people really do. They put $100 a paycheck into a savings account and then $200 into a different savings account. And when I see the statements, they just transfer the money from savings to checking and spend it. And that's it because they're at the same institution,
Yep.
because they have the electronic things or the idea was great, but they'd never established a working budget to keep themselves on track where it didn't become an emergency, right?
Yep.
Need versus want and discipline again, because you know, saving for the next car, saving for the family vacation, these are fantastic ideas. We both encourage that, I'm sure. But what we'd rather see you do is actually save for it and have the money sitting there growing. And I'll tell you what, time over time, the more old school you can make it, and the more of a slight amount of inconvenience to you, you'll find that you
Yep.
actually do it. That's why systematic investing works, by the way. And I'll
Amen.
tell you, as
Yep.
as as an investor for 30 years, if you put $100 a month, $300 a month, $1,000 a month into something, and it's automatic, you have a far higher likelihood that it actually happens,
Yep.
right? If it's left up to me, and I'm very disciplined, but if I need to cut the check every month, some month I'll have an excuse. I don't know
Yep.
when, but I know it'll happen. And it's not for any great reason. It'll be an excuse. And that's why, is because it's sort of taken off your plate, right?
Yep.
And that systematic side of the world, that's one side where I think use technology to your advantage. But then those funds that have been pulled and placed somewhere, they're slightly more inconvenient to get to, right?
Yep. It's why the 401k has been so popular, right? With
Correct.
automatic investing out of your paycheck. You don't have to write a check. You don't have to address an envelope or lick a stamp. It
Mhm.
happens automatically. You don't miss the money. That's the key piece. That's what it is psychologically, right? We're not missing
Sure.
it because once it hits your checking account, it's a real number in your mind. And if you have to move it somewhere, you're now feeling again back to that verb issue. You're now like, oh, I have to do something actively. And it feels like something's being taken away from you, right? Where if you do it right
Right.
up front at your paycheck level, I love how you bring that up, Carl, right? Right. You're just going to take it right and put it into a couple of savings accounts. But to reiterate a couple of the bullet points we just made there to drive them home, different banks with those transfers, no debit card, right? Make it hard in the opposite direction of where you would normally travel,
Yep.
and make it and do the systematic part, right? Make it automated, because all those things together, you have put yourself at a better advantage to not fall victim. And it's just human nature, and the deck is stacked against us, right?
It is.
As social people, right? It's stacked against us. I also see it stacked against even more so. I know this sounds strange, but my single, not married, widowed, right? Where it's really hard because it's only you in your mind. It's only that accountability part. And so
Mm.
whatever you can do, right, to keep yourself accountable to your own goals. And please rely on a professional. I mean, that's another thing that we help clients do, is just stay accountable to who you are, and what your goals are, because then we can help check in and say, hey, how's the savings going? And did you get that? Did you get that bank account that's down the street and away from your house?
Yep.
So stay accountable. I think that's another piece to it. So even if you have to get a friend, a loved one, a family member to say, hey, can you check in with me? I think that's another psychological thing, is staying accountable to yourself, and then
Yep.
letting other people know, hey guys, letting your friends know, hey, I'm getting on a plan. I'm doing these things to make a change in my life. Hey, can you help me stay accountable to my plan? And maybe help have them remove some of those pressure points too, because sometimes it's social, right? It's a social thing. So I think all of those things plus staying accountable those things added up together can be really powerful.
Oh, I totally agree. And so if you are one of those people watching this video who does peel off money from your paychecks through direct deposit to, savings accounts in addition to like checking, then great. Go the other direction from home, open the new savings account, get the routing number, do
Yep.
not get online access to that account, do not get a debit card tied to that account, and give that information to your payroll company and have them start siphoning off to a company, institution, bank or credit union of your choice, where you can no longer swipe the money back to your main checking account. And you will find, I think, instantly that you'll make much more progress and that will feel good. Once you see that grow for a couple of months, you'll go, dang, that's pretty awesome. Because, if you bank at Wells Fargo, you can go back for a long time and look on your statements and find that you haven't saved anything, even though you may have pushed 20 grand over to a savings account. But if the balance is zero, that kind of tells you where you're at.
Yep. Another pro tip right there too, if you do all those steps like Carl just mentioned, you don't have to go overboard with the amount. Like start maybe even a little smaller. So again, I
Yep.
always try to tell clients, don't get jaded. Don't try to push it to the absolute limit. Like, oh, Clay, I did your budget trick. I did the 12 months and the 12 months of income, and I found out on average I have $400 surplus every month. I think I'm going to do 415. Like don't push it to the
Right.
limit, because you'll find yourself disappointed, right? So
Yep.
sneak up on it. I tell people, maybe take a third of that number, or a portion of that number that you're seeing on average, because again, it's an average. It's not going to happen every month that way. So start, I don't want to say start so small that it's insignificant, but start smaller than your maximum, because I
Mhm.
want people to build confidence, right, in that process, not turn around 3 months later and be upset or jaded about it.
That's so great. And I kind of think about that when clients come to me that have never invested in a 401k and they go, I can do 15%. And I'm like, great, start at 6. You know,
Yes, right.
where's the match? As we try to build on these financial concepts, I love that idea of, yeah, sneak up on it. These are modifiable things. These are
Yep.
not written in concrete where they're not able to be changed. So if you look at and you know yourself best, so if you're looking at your bank statements and you go, dang, I'm the person who's swiping all the savings over to checking and then spending it, and I really don't have anything to show for it, start at 50% of what you think you can do
Yep.
and then actually save it. Recently I went to Bash's', and if you ever look at the receipts from a grocery store, as their member, whatever it is, it says, you saved $27.19. And I looked at the cashier, I'm like, great, where'd you put it?
Yeah.
Right. And and
Right.
and so our sometimes our concepts of savings in general are misguided.
Yep.
Not spending isn't the same as saving. And we need to be cognizant of these things. And it doesn't have to be, we sometimes it's just good to be kind to ourselves, right? This isn't the time to be overly judgmental when we're talking about budgeting. This is the time to give yourself some slack, because you're going to learn some things about your income and your expenses that are going to be really helpful. But especially if it's a couple, do not enter into judgment land. Don't be like, you go to Starbucks and you go to QT and you go.
Yeah,
No, don't. This is not the time for that.
that's right.
Um, but there are a lot of strategies, Clay, for, you know, the types of actual budgets. So maybe talk to us, about some of the ones that you see or that you like or that you've had some success with clients to use. Because you can Google like kind of a short form expense, budget that's a one pager. You can make it real detailed and do, a full blown Excel spreadsheet that's 20 pages that categorizes everything, down to, cat food, that's both liquid and solid. Um, or they have as simple as the envelope system.
Yeah, envelope system. That's a great one to start with, Carl, right there out of the gate. So that's a classic. And if you can imagine, right, an envelope, right, that you would send a letter in and you would typically write on the outside and lick a stamp and put it on there and send it to grandma, right, for a birthday or something. But that is a classic system that I've seen a lot of clients use successfully. It's really tangible, which is the reason why I think it makes it's really popular. But what you're really doing is once you know I've got $2,000 I need for the mortgage. I've got $500 a month I need for groceries. Once you know those numbers, that's kind of the secret to the envelope system. You got to know those average numbers. You are physically, tangibly writing on the outside of the envelope groceries, right? And you know that every month $500 has to be in that envelope to pay for the groceries. You are taking money, physical bills, 20s, 10s, 50s, ones, right? I've heard people that have done the envelope system for decades. They're like putting change in there, right? So
Yes.
you're putting physical bills into an envelope that says groceries. And you're filling that envelope in out of your paycheck every week or every other week, right? However often you're getting paid. Because you know, right, that $250 every paycheck's got to go into that envelope every 2 weeks to pay for $500 worth of groceries every month. And what makes it so powerful is the reverse. You're once you put that money in, I see people go, oh no, oh yeah, no, that money doesn't come out of it until I take that envelope to the grocery store
Yep.
and I'm physically buying the groceries with the money that's in that envelope. And it makes it very resistant, right, for people to touch because that guilt element is really powerful. Once that money has entered that envelope, it is impossible to take it. I mean, I say it slightly facetiously, but that's what our brain is saying. It's like, oh no, 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 like the what I was going to do this weekend for fun has to come from somewhere else because that's the grocery envelope. Yeah,
Correct.
but yeah, you can't take it. You can't take that money out of the rent or the mortgage envelope, and you can't take that money right out of the cell phone bill envelope.
For the car
Um,
payment. Yeah.
can't do that. I got to have the car right to get to
Yep.
work, so I can't take it from there. And once your mind associates the dollars, physical dollars that you put into the envelope, once your mind has released that money and been put into the envelope, it becomes it's like a little capture. It's like your brain will not let that money out until that bill comes due. The hard part in all honesty now, I think with the envelope system is truly, and Carl mentioned this before, our system is built on this electronic payment right world now. And so groceries still pretty easy. You can do the envelope system. It'd be pretty effective. But there are going to be some bills that are going to be harder, right, to do that with nowadays. So that I would say it's an effective system. I've seen people use it very efficiently and effectively over many, many years. But I would say its adoption is, I see fewer and fewer people using it now. I've been doing this
Yep.
for 21 years, and I used to see it a lot 21 years ago. But I now see it less often, but still
Right. Because it's harder the challenge
wildly
with it
effective.
today is that you essentially have to cash your work check,
Yep.
go home, spread out your envelopes, divvy it up into the manner in which they have to go into. And then, for most of the things, like you said, you've got your student loans and your car, you got to take the envelope with the car payment to the bank, deposit
Yep.
that money, and then electronically send the bill.
That's right.
Right? So there's extra steps today that will cause most people grief mentally. However, I can't underscore enough, and having personally done the envelope system myself, I will say that um, the psychology of money becomes incredibly transparent when you have to take an envelope and peel off 20s, 50s, and hundreds because your brain says don't do that. That
Don't do it.
you don't really need that. You
Don't do
keep
it.
that in them, keep that in there. It's fine.
Yep.
We'll just let it roll, you
Yep.
know. And compared to the psychology of swiping a credit card
Yep.
or
Totally.
or
Yeah.
not even
Totally agree.
swiping, right? You just tap, or
Tapping
it's a chip, or whatever the case may be, where
or your phone. Yeah, your phone is your credit card now,
your
right?
phone, right? So they've made it so easy that there's almost zero emotional connection that that's even money that you're
Yeah.
spending. And that's the genius of their system.
Agreed.
And this is so while the I think the envelope system, yeah, I've definitely seen it, deteriorate over time in terms of people using it because it's a little more clunky from an actual use perspective. But holy cow, is it powerful to understand the psychology of money and where the need versus want comes in, because
Yep.
that'll really separate, I think, that differential. Because when you go somewhere and you have a stack of 20s and you start peeling them off, you feel that.
Oh yeah.
And
There are two areas I will point out though, Carl, that I have seen it adapted that works still very effectively in our electronic world system. Right. Number one, the envelope system for things like holiday, Christmas gift purchases,
Mhm.
still wildly effective.
Yeah.
Right. So I have clients that I'm not kidding you, come January 1st, new envelope, Christmas gifts, Hanukkah gifts, birthday gifts. They put whatever they need to on multiple envelopes, and January 1st, every paycheck, they're saving $100. They're saving $100. They're saving $100. It goes right into the envelope. And come October, November, they're set.
Yep.
It's not even a credit card issue. It's
Well,
not, they just take the envelope
here's
to
what's really
Walmart.
cool. Here's what's really cool about that is that I will tell you, for most people that actually produce a budget and report back to me so we can review the budget and go over the numbers, the category that's almost always eliminated
Blank,
is gifts and Christmas.
blank.
I can't,
Wait a
like
second.
90% of the time, I'm like, do you guys not
Stop.
buy anything? Or
Right.
they're like, of course we do. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, where is it?
Yep.
Well, we just take care of it in, November, December. It's like,
The
no,
other
it's
most
just
common one, by the way, on my budget, it most common, exactly yours, gifts or Christmas gifts. Second most common is travel. And I'm like, wait a second, you're not giving anybody gifts and you're not traveling. Something's up. Something's
clothing
off
is
here.
another good one that's not on there often
Yep.
enough. Or they're like, $20 a month. It's like
Yep.
$20 a month for clothes for your
Yep.
entire family.
Right. Something's off.
Okay.
The other way I've seen envelope system in a slightly different format get adapted, still very effective. Because again, because of the electronic nature of our world, it seems a little daunting, but go with me on this, right? You can go to Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, a lot of credit unions will do this. You can have different savings account
Mhm.
numbers.
Yep.
And so you would have, let's just say it's savings account 1, 2, 3, 4. They all end in different 8-digit numbers and all that stuff, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can say, and what I love about this system is a lot of the online opportunities, you can rename the accounts.
Yes.
You can
You
have
give
them
it a
have
nickname.
nicknames. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
you do a nickname and you could say Christmas fund and you can say, right, or you can make it more of a true monthly envelope system. You could say car payment, rent payment, grocery bill. And you can, when you get that direct deposit from your paycheck, you can literally just sweep money into each of those, right, envelopes. Now they're online envelopes, but I still feel like it captures a lot of that once that money is in that savings account that specifically nickname groceries or specifically nickname, right? It's the college fund or college payment I got to make for my kids, college. Like those, that money is gone. So it
Yep.
it does have some of those functional opportunities, psychological opportunities that
Yeah,
can.
that's great. I think it's nice. That's a great hybrid of the traditional, because a lot of people just won't try the traditional, even though
Yep.
I guarantee if you did for a month, you'd find it incredibly powerful.
Yep. Agreed.
But the online version would be a great substitute if you're not going to go through the hassle of trying the actual cath method in the envelope system. Um, and that's fantastic. And it's great. You probably even, honestly, you could probably even set up a recurring bill from your
Yep.
checking to any of those savings to systematically drop in the money
Exactly.
without you doing it. And then the question then is really, taking the receipt from the groceries back home and transferring the exact amount of money. And at the end of the month, the idea with the envelope system kind of historically is if you get to the end of the month for non-fixed expenses, you sweep all the change that's left
Extra.
in all the envelopes and you put that into another account.
Yep.
And
That's right.
so the electronic side of it that Clay mentioned, I think would be interesting too. You would just have to be really good at the sweeping. And
Yep.
that sweeping, again, I would say that's go to the bank, take the money out and deposit it at your other bank down the road with no online access and no debit card.
That's it.
Or bill pay it to that account
That's
from your
it.
checking account so that it's electronic, but it's only a one-way out scenario from, institution A to institution B, but the institution
Yep.
B has no debit card, no online access.
Yep.
And then I think you could actually accomplish that in a fairly, 2024 world. Okay, so I think we've given people a really good understanding of sort of the old school envelope system, which I love and I think is a great one, especially if we can adapt it a little. Um, what other ones do you see or do you like or do you have people start?
So there are some online really great tools. I just warn people, once you start going online and looking for budgeting tools, you're often going to run into for-profit companies, right? That their mission is to get you to engage, right, in different ways. So
Mhm.
you got to kind of tread lightly here, but there are some really good online tools. Mint used to have a really great tool, but your banks even have them. So you can go onto your bank and you can get, in a lot of cases, a lot of the biggest banks actually have budgeting tools because what they're going to start with is they're going to start with your core spending data. And they know that Circle K is a convenience store, right? So they're going to categorize a lot of these things for you. They're going to say, hey, you went to Kohl's and we're going to put that in, clothing or furnishings, right? They're going to kind of like already automatically start categorizing things. So you'll start to see exactly where you're spending, right? Groceries, rent payments, right? Car payments. So that's a nice way to kind of take that next step in the budgeting process. And then what they can do is take that data and start doing those average monthlies, right? Kind of categorically for you.
Okay.
Groceries, sometimes at our house, when I go do the grocery shopping right at our house with my wife and kids, if I'm going to do that, I go to my favorite grocery store. If Lindsay goes and does that, she goes to her favorite grocery
Right.
store, right? So it's nice when you have those automated systems that are picking up different locations and saying it's all groceries, right? So that way, when you're doing the budgeting and the averaging, at least it's just in one category. And once you find that rhythm, so then you can actually see, okay, now I see what's happening. They will also give you the software to build out putting in every month, hey, what did I spend or what should I be spending from a budgeting perspective? So there are some tech tools out there, very interactive, very user friendly. I suggest taking a peek at some of them online, but please, please, please read the fine print. I always warn clients, these are, if it says free for a budgeting tool, one of the online tools, just be careful because that means there might be opportunities where they're marketing you things or they're sending your name and information out and you will be marketed in the future. Spending a couple bucks, it sounds counterintuitive, but spending a couple bucks for a budgeting tool can be very powerful. A, if you just don't know where the money's going, or B, you don't know the first place to start
Mhm.
on building out, some sort of spreadsheet or tracking mechanism. But that can be a good first step into budgeting is using your bank system or another online budgeting tool. I think there's some really great ones out there.
I
But
agree. And I don't want people to take this the wrong way. It's not that I'm against the technological side of the world.
agreed, right? You just have to
However,
know how it's interfacing with you. Yeah,
right. However, there's a reason that app exists,
yeah,
the website exists. And I would say, as a good first step, Googling a one page or a simple budget and physically printing it out is a great first step so that you kind of know the numbers
yeah,
yourself. Um, because maybe you just want, to make minor changes to begin with before you jump, neck deep into uh your banking institution's, well, or an app. And I have several apps that are really good at sort of consolidating and putting all the different things together. on the asset and the debt and the balance sheet perspective. However, as Mr. Janson just informed us, what they're really doing behind the scenes is they're looking for that as an opportunity to cross-sell you to all kinds of other things. And maybe you didn't want to sign up for that kind of stuff. So printing out Googling a one-page budget and starting simple, I think is a
I
good
love that.
first step, and especially for, a couple or a single person that's, around on a Friday night and you've got an hour, you can burn this thing out in an hour and you can get fairly close. You'll have a really good idea in an hour sitting down with your 12 monthly printed bank statements and a one-page budget of raw numbers. And I think that's a great place. Now, a lot of people are very analytical. A lot of people are super tech savvy. There's a million ways to do this. I don't want to say there's one way.
Yep.
And one way is not right for anyone, or everyone, but you starting simple and free is always a plus, and it'll give you a baseline. And when we look at kind of that expense side of the world, a lot of times we sort of have the fixed expenses, right? Our mortgage payments consistent, our car payments consistent, our student loans may be consistent,
So
and
it's
then we have
variable expenses.
the
Yeah.
variables, right? And so I always tell people, and this is, I'm curious what you tell people too, Clay, but like if you want to start with one category and say, where's one thing I can do to just kind of know where I'm at? And then if I want to make improvement, what's the easiest category? And categorically, to me, it's food.
Yep.
If you go through those bank statements and you just circle everything that was food, and be careful because Circle K, you can buy gas
That's
and
right.
stuff inside. So if it's a $6 expense at Circle K, unless you only spend $6 on gas, it's probably not gas. So don't put that in the fuel category. Put that in the food category. And you circle all the foods, you'll find that whatever you think in your brain that you're spending on monthly averages for food, you're probably likely spending twice that.
Yep.
Um,
Agreed.
and that's been my experience is that people are typically off by a factor of two.
Yep.
And when you add it all together, you're like, oh yeah, well, I didn't really consider Starbucks food. I'm like, yeah, well, it is. So
Yep.
it goes in that category. And oh yeah, well, our office, they had a goodbye party and we went out to the bar and we had a couple of drinks and some food, and that wasn't, that was
Plan.
abnormal. It's like
Yep.
it's only abnormal because you only do it every so often, but it gets caught in that 12-month average.
That's right.
And again, it's important. And so if you want to make quick changes and get a pulse on, well, Carl, what do you think is the easiest category? I'd say food. What do you see, Clay?
Oh, I see the same thing. I think it's food, going out, sometimes travel, because again, people say to me, "Hey, Clay, I spend X thousands of dollars. I do a big trip once per year with my kids and my family every summer, right when they're on summer vacation." But then I'll see them post online, and they're in Prescott for the weekend, or they're
Right.
in right, yeah, they did a staycation somewhere locally here during the summer just to kind of check out and get some R&R. And I remind them, I'm like, hey, you can do the one big trip per year, but there's more things that I would put in that travel bucket, right? Because there are opportunities to check out entertainment wise. So it's kind of that blend of entertainment and travel that sometimes gets a little blurred. Again, not a judgment and not saying you shouldn't do them. It's just
Correct.
it's the awareness.
It's the
I want to go.
awareness.
I want to go
Yeah.
back to your one pager, which I love. I love the idea of we do share with clients. It's technically a two pager now because I think people's lives got so complex, but we have a 2-page Excel spreadsheet that we share with clients so they can categorize things. For you, for any particular person, it might actually be only one page of data. We've just found out that there's different ways to spend money nowadays, right? So they tend to expand. But
Right.
my most successful clients, and you mentioned it earlier, I just want to really kind of scratch at it, will literally come home every night. I know this sounds like a lot. You could also do it once a week on a Friday, right? Like you said with your spouse. You could literally collect receipts. It's easy to do. It's easier than you think. When you get offered a receipt at a restaurant or at the grocery store, take the receipt. You literally put it in your pocket. When you get home at night, you have a collection of receipts. Whether you went to Circle K, McDonald's, you went to the grocery store, whatever you did, and you can get home and you just type it into your one page Excel spreadsheet, right? Or handwrite it in, right? Lindsay and I have often just handwritten things down on a nightly basis and say, hey, this is what we spent today, right?
Mhm.
And you will have, it's not a lot of work because it takes 2 minutes if you do it daily. It takes maybe 10 or 15 if you do it once a week on a Friday.
Love it.
And you can just, and you don't have to go backwards in time, although I wish people would with those 12 statements. If you just want to start clean, because now you know your average, right, from our instructions of doing the 12 monthly, you know what your average expenses are. But if you want to just start today, you can get your one pager out and say, what did I spend today? And it takes you 2 minutes because you went to Starbucks, you got gas, and on the way home, you had that, as you mentioned, you had that after work drink with a friend. So that can be a good way just to start writing and categorizing things down live, right? And then at the end of the month, guess what you have? You've got your budget, right? And then you go to the next month. My business owner clients have been doing this for years because everything's deductible. So in their brain, they're already thinking, I better write this down. I better get a receipt. I better put
Correct.
it in. So my
Yep.
business owners typically are going to have a leg up when it comes to budgeting, right? Because they're already doing that in a
Right.
lot of ways. But think about that. Just make it easy. Do it once a day. It takes 2 minutes. It doesn't take a lot of time. Or do it the next day. If you're out and about and you're doing something social, you have those receipts in your pocket, do it the next morning.
Yeah, it's also good just to kind of remind yourself and celebrate zero, I call zero paydays. If there's a day and you didn't spend money, mentally celebrate.
Oh my
Be proud
gosh,
of yourself. That's a great
that's
day.
huge.
That's a
That's
big
huge.
day.
Yeah, especially with Amazon, right?
Yeah,
Like
I mean, it's really hard. And if you to
it's hard.
string a bunch together in a row is really challenging.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So awesome. Well, I think is there anything else you wanted to add to our budgeting section before we jump forward?
The one thing I'll add is don't be afraid of it. Don't treat it like it's a four-letter word, right? It's a six budget is a six-letter word. Last time I checked, but do take a step. Take a step in knowing what it is. Take a step in tracking it. You will be so much happier once you start that process of discovery.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if you're a couple doing it together, just be kind. This
Yeah,
is not a fight. And it shouldn't result in animosity. This is just fact finding
fact finding.
and where are we?
Yeah. And
Um,
by the way, you just actually said it right at the beginning. If you're a couple and you're doing it together,
yeah,
do it
please
together.
do.
Don't
Yes,
do
please
not
do it
have one
together.
spouse do it because if the other spouse is not in the process of discovery, there tends to be some of that right that it maybe defensiveness or right territorial spending. So do it together, right? Do sit down on a Friday or a Saturday, do it together.
Yep, love it. Well, I think that wraps up this session. Stick with us in the following sessions where we're going to continue to dig deep. We'll be right back.